Hello. This week's chapter of the big story of God and of us is about the great shepherd king of Israel. So just to connect us to last week we had Moses and the Israelites in the wilderness, and Moses received the law, which was a gift for God's people. And eventually God's people were able to enter the promised land. They were led across the Jordan River by Moses' successor, Joshua, and established themselves in the promised land. There was a series of judges that ruled them, and they became a nation. They planted cities and started to live there. And they decided they really wanted a king so they could be like the other nations around them. A king would make them powerful. And this was, in many ways, a rejection of Yahweh as their God because they were rejecting Yahweh as their king and asking for a human king. But God, in graciousness, granted their request, and granted their request in a way that it would fit into God's great plan of redemption and of rescue, this plan that would involve the Redeemer to come. And so God granted their plan and gave them a shepherd king. Actually, the first king was Saul, and that didn't work out. And after Saul kind of went down the wrong path, God said, this time I'm going to choose a king who's a man after my own heart. So the reading in both the children's Bible and the actual Bible is about the choosing of David as a king. And there's this really dramatic setup where Samuel is told by God to anoint a new king, and he goes through all of Jesse's sons who really look like kings. They're tall and powerful and handsome, and each one God is like, nope, not that one. And they finally come to David, and Samuel's like, huh? And God's like, yeah. People look at the outside appearance, and I look at the heart. So maybe talk about what it means to have a heart that's like God's, and how David's heart was like God's. Maybe talk about how a shepherd is like a king, or qualities that make a shepherd a good shepherd could also make someone a good king. So David becomes a king, and he becomes a very successful king. And he wants to build God a temple, a house where God can live. And God basically says to him, hey, I don't need it. I'm happy living in a tabernacle, but here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to establish your kingdom forever and ever and ever. Always. There's going to be one of your descendants who will be on a throne. And that is an incredible promise. It's a covenant God makes with David, and it's an unconditional covenant. Pretty much no matter what God says, your throne will be established forever. And indeed, David's great, 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 great grandson is Jesus, a shepherd king who comes to rescue and redeem sheep who are lost, to bring them back to the fold, to bring them back into love. Like David, and even more so, Jesus has an open heart to God and to God's love. Jesus says, I'm the good shepherd, and a thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I've come so that you might have life and have it abundantly. That's the kind of shepherd king that Jesus is, establishing a kingdom that is upside down, where the lost are found, the poor are filled, and the rich are sent away empty. So I think just part of the questions you might want to ask is what it means to rule as a servant, what it means to rule as a shepherd who's looking out for sheep. Maybe especially in the middle of a presidential election, it might be a good time to talk about what it means to be a leader who's also a servant. And then to connect David onto Jesus as the shepherd king who would come to rescue us as lost sheep. So I hope it's a great week. I suggest maybe a hide and seek game where there's a shepherd seeker and a bunch of sheep who are lost and need to be found. I think that could just be a really fun time as a family. Have a wonderful week, and goodbye.